Well, hey, y'all, welcome back to the Faith-Based Birthing Podcast. And again, I'm here with Sue, and we are going to hit home birth number 2. And this story is amazing. This was a 12-pound baby. A little gift coming into her life that weighed 12 pounds. Does it scare you? Does it scare y'all if I say 12 pounds? And she rebirthed them at home? Like, that's amazing. It shouldn't scare you because God knows what he's doing, right? But how are you, Sue? I'm so glad you're back with us. Thanks for continuing this conversation.
Hi, I'm doing great, especially now that we're a year postpartum.
All right, so let's talk about, we've already heard your first birth story and how you got to home birth and free birth, right? So now we're at this next birth and we know that we're getting ready to have a baby any day now. So let's talk leading up to that a little bit. How did you prepare differently for this one versus how you prepared for your first home birth?
Yeah, so this was different because my mom wanted to be a part. She didn't want to miss the birth. And so she came actually a week before my due date, and I gave birth a week after my due date. So she was there for 2 weeks. And my mom is such a precious woman of God, and she's a Presbyterian, and she, also has a lot of fears for me because she's my mom. And so it kind of brought a lot of concerns and fears into the picture. And there was a lot of questioning and me going to appointments to make her feel happy and kind of things like that. This birth, I definitely wanted to be more documented. I wanted the videos. I wanted a photographer. I wanted a beautiful birth space. And I think all of that preparation took the eyes off of what really mattered, was having my faith right, having my relationship right with the Lord, really trusting and resting and trusting the Lord. So it didn't go exactly how I wanted it to. And that's kind of the difference of my last birth to this birth, was that I allowed another person in the picture, which, bless her heart, I wanted her there, but there was something so special about it being just me and my husband. So anyway, that was the difference, was she was there. And so I pretty much prepared the same. I got all of the supplies. I used a lot of my old supplies that I had saved from the last birth. I didn't really have to buy much new. And I had more stuff set up for video and picture. So
Yeah, my first home birth came so fast that I didn't get anything except pictures afterwards, right? And so I was the same way. The second one, I was like, I don't care if it is just me. I am setting up a camera. I'm doing something, like this is going to be recorded because it matters, right?
yeah.
But I knew that if I let my mom or his mom or anyone else in, that space of peace and that space of surrender would be breached, just because they're moms. Like, just because they, we're their babies. Think of the concern that you have for your babies, right? We're their babies, and this is outside of their realm of understanding. Like, my mom didn't have a home birth. And so, I wanted to make sure that we were in, as peaceful of a space as possible. So I didn't plan everything that I planned the first time when my husband was like, so you're going to have a whole army in here, right? But I toned down that planning a little bit. So, okay, so your mom is there, you are preparing, you're realizing that you didn't necessarily have your headspace the way that you wanted it and everything like that, but you're a week overdue. Did you have prodromal labor or anything like that? Like, did that bring anxiety, just being overdue?
Not really. This was my pregnancy, my healthiest pregnancy out of all six. I mean, this is my sixth pregnancy, and I will say, this pregnancy I surrendered to God. And this is one where I intentionally got on my knees, got on my face, laid on my face at the beginning of my pregnancy. I told the Lord, I don't want to gain 50 pounds like I did with my other kids. I don't want to be overweight. I don't want to have pain. I don't want to have aches. And I told the Lord, I need help with my exercise and my nutrition. And I cried out to God. And I tell you what, this pregnancy was my healthiest. I worked out every day. I wanted salads. I wanted fruits. I wanted the good stuff. I only gained 30 pounds, less than 30. I only gained like 25 pounds. Crazy for a 12-pound baby,
I was
right?
saying he was 12 pounds of that. That's amazing.
I know it. And the placenta and the fluids, because the minute I had them, it was gone. And that had never happened to me before. So it was my healthiest pregnancy, my healthiest, just everything. And I looked so good. I look back at pictures. I'm like, thank you, Lord, because I was 40 weeks pregnant and it was all belly. It was
Yeah.
like, and saying out loud too, I was like, let the baby eat my fat. Like, I'm not going to overeat. I don't need to eat for two. Like, let the baby eat my fat. And he did, because my arms were super skinny. My legs were skinny. I was working out to the last day and it was all belly. So that was amazing.
Okay, so now is there a reason why your last pregnancy was so much different? I know you said you worked out differently. I know you said that you were eating things differently, but what was there more to that?
Absolutely. I started taking these incredible supplements and I hadn't done these in a while. So when I started taking them again, I felt so good. And I had all day natural energy. My gut health was on point. I was having regular bowel movements every day through that pregnancy, which is so important when it comes to having a history of an anal fissure, a history of, hemorrhoids, different things that happen during birth. You have to make sure in your pregnancy that you're taking the right supplements. I was taking Thrive supplements, incredible, just all around wholeness. And what they do is they fill my nutritional gaps. So anything that you're missing, they're going to fill it up. And they also help a lot with gut health. So through that pregnancy, I didn't have any issues with like my anal anything, which was so nice because I have had that in the past with pregnancies. And so gaining only 30 pounds was a dream come true. With my past pregnancies, I had gained 50 pounds, which each of them, and I felt so heavy. I felt so burdened by that weight. And then after I had the baby, the weight fell off within a week. It was all gone. I continued taking my Thrive supplements. And so what it is, it's a morning system and, it just gives me that all natural energy. So I don't need coffee. I don't need caffeine. I don't need tea. I don't need anything to get through that pregnancy fatigue. And I'm able to keep up with my 5 kids while having a super healthy pregnancy. So these supplements help me a whole lot with that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you're a thriver. Like, so I do business coaching too. So a couple of my clients um are in Thrive. And so I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So y'all, if you want to know any more about these supplements, I am going to post the link down here and you can go and check out Sue's supplements that she's talking about. And I do know lots of people that talk about how awesome they are. So yeah, thanks for sharing a little bit about that. All right, now let's move on.
Yeah, it was my birthday at 40 weeks. I was due on my birthday. Did not have him on my birthday. Did not feel like I was going to have him. I mentioned about, people pleasing my mom. So I was going to appointments prenatal still. I'm planning a completely free pregnancy for my next pregnancy. I don't want to have any doctor appointments. I don't need them. But anyway, I was going to doctor appointments. They were scaring me. They tried to strip my membranes. I came in the day before I gave birth. I was almost 41 weeks. And the doctor goes, I want to send you to the hospital right now. She's like, you need to go have your baby. She's like, we're going to induce you today. Okay. And I told her, no. And I laughed. And she just was like, okay, well, your baby can die. And she started to threaten the risk of death. And they did that through my whole pregnancy. I didn't have gestational diabetes. I didn't have any of that, but my baby was always measuring 2 weeks ahead. And they constantly threaten C-section and induction. Oh, let's just give you a C-section. It won't hurt as much. You're going to have a big baby. We could tell. Let's just induce you early. You're 37 weeks. It's time to have a baby, and with the way that he was measuring so big, I was like 37 weeks measuring 41 weeks. And so they were like, let's go have a baby. And they wanted me to do a late term ultrasound, which I'm against. And so I didn't go. And they were really upset with me. When I went into the doctor, she verbalized her anger towards me about that and said that I was threatening the life of my baby and that they don't know what's going on in there because they didn't get to see it on ultrasound and they don't know how big he is. They don't know if he's head down, which clearly he was head down. No 12-pound baby is going to fit not head um, so, it was a lot of fear in those last 2 weeks from the doctors and from my mom. But in my headspace, I was happy. I was peaceful. I felt healthy. I was excited. I knew things were going to be okay because of how good I was feeling. I felt like I was on cloud 9. Like I was ready. Every day I woke up so excited and happy to give birth. So 41 weeks hits. And the night before, I had done this YouTube video that I now send every woman that reaches out to me because it's called like inducing labor naturally. And it's just like a stretching, just like a stretching video, like exercise kind of type of thing. But it's supposed to induce labor naturally. And I did that the night before I went into labor. So I would share that with people. And then I could send you the link if you wanted so you can take a look at it, see if you want to maybe
Lots to
put up
see it.
video notes. But I go to sleep that night. I'm feeling good. It's my daughter's birthday the next morning.
Oh,
Her birthday table that night, and I always do a birthday table for my kids. I did this whole charade for her. I was feeling good. I didn't think I was going to give birth that next day at all. I was feeling great. I was up till maybe 11 o'clock, 12 midnight, feeling good. No contractions. I just did that video with my mom. I go to bed. And then in the middle of the night, I did think it was weird around 3 a.m. I woke up pretty nauseous, and I had not been nauseous through the end of my pregnancy. I was like, this is weird. I'm nauseous, but I didn't throw up. I just felt nausea. And so I was like, okay. I was kind of tossing and turning in bed through the night. And it wasn't contractions, though. It was just like, I'm uncomfortable. I'm tossing and turning. You know how it is at the end of pregnancy. It's a little hard to get uncomfortable. Um, so I wake up at 6 a.m. and I'm having contractions, but they're bearable. So I go back to sleep. So I wake up at 7:25 and I'm like a 5 a.m. waker. So again, that was weird. I slept in, right?
yeah.
When I woke up at 7:25, from 7:25, 2 hours later, he was out. It was done. The birth was over. So it was a 2 hour birth. So from 7:25 to 9:25, he was out and it was done, which was crazy to me. So I pretty much labored through my sleep. Early labor was all in my sleep. So that was really cool. But do you want me to just kind of hop in?
Yeah. So I want to hit on a couple of things because one of the key things everyone asks me, well, how do I have an amazing birth? Surrender. Surrender and peace. Those are your two biggest keys. You have to surrender. And if you're running around going, oh, I'm past my due date, I'm so worried about this, you're not surrendered. Don't tell me you are. Like, we need to have a conversation, right? And due dates, that's a whole nother topic for another episode. We'll do that. But like, that's factored on a very, very old system. Don't due dates or guess dates, and that's it. And they're wrong most of the time. But anyway, so if you're running around and you're like, I'm due any day, and I don't know, and they told me that I was already at a 2 and 80% effaced, and he's not coming, and nothing is happening. You're not surrendered. Let's talk about it, and let's figure out what in you isn't surrendered, and then walk through that. So anyway, that's part of my first birth story too. That's a whole other thing. And I want you to elaborate a little bit on why you don't do late term ultrasounds.
Yeah, so I started to see a lot of research, a lot of correlation between autism and birth defects related to ultrasound and the heating of the tissue. And it's also why I don't do early ultrasounds because that time is so precious when they're so tiny. And a lot of women, sadly, have early term miscarriages directly after their first ultrasound, and nobody makes a correlation. No doctor, no nurse is like, hey, you just had an ultrasound and then a miscarriage. And that's such a touchy subject. So I'm sorry to bring it up. Trigger warning, I've had a miscarriage before, and that was my big red flag because I had multiple ultrasounds before I miscarried. I had one in a bus, which those are very dangerous. Because of the frequencies and it's just not monitored well. And I had a 3D one. All of this before I miscarried. And so anyway, it just opened my eyes to everything. I started to do research. If you look on the ACOG, the American College of Gynecology, that's where a lot of doctors get their information, where they go. And if you read through about ultrasound and pregnancy, you will see there are tricky words in there where they indicate that ultrasound is not safe unless that ultrasound gives you a final conclusion or something that would indicate like the death of you. And that's the only time they're safe. If you really read through it, you can understand that. You just have to pick it apart. And so a lot of people just skim through. I recommend reading each word that the ACOG says about ultrasound and then deciding for yourself, is it really that important for you to know your exact due date. No, it's not that important. Two, I mean, it's important for you to know these things. Not really. I mean, if my kid had a birth defect, I would still give birth. I would still carry my child. I would still give birth. I would still care for my child until they're of old age. God forbid that happened. But anyway, that's my whole tangent about ultrasounds. It's interesting with this baby because I refused the early ultrasound and they were really upset with me about that. Then I went in at, I believe it was 13 weeks. I had already chosen my due date starting from the first day I had nausea. So from the first day I had nausea, I just started to calculate and use tools on Google and things to choose my due date. And guess what? That's the day I had him.
That's so with my first pregnancy, I told my doctor when he said, this is your due date, I was like, no, you're off. That's not right. And I wasn't even that far into the, natural birth, crunchy birth, home birth thing at that point. Right. So it matters that you know your body. It matters that you know what you know because you know it, right? Not because someone else handed it down to you. And it matters. I want you to hear in this that you can say no. She's told you a lot of things in her story where she was saying, no, 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 no. I'm good. I'm good. I'm not going to worry about that. I understand that that is something that you want, and that is something that is a typical practice for you, but I'm actually going to refuse that. And it's okay to have those conversations. You have that right. Even if it ticks them off to no end, it is okay. And a lot of them will say, you know what? I'm going to dismiss you from my care if you don't do this. It's okay. It's okay
It's okay.
because guess what? Even if you're at the end of this, you're still going to show up. If you're going to the hospital, you're still going to show up at a hospital. There's going to be a doctor on call and you're still going to have a baby. Chances are that the OB that you are meeting with over and over and over again is not going to be the doctor that delivers your baby. That's just, there's a high probability of that. So just know that you can advocate for yourself. You have autonomy. You can say no in a lot of situations. But anyway, I wanted to point those things out. So, all right, let's get back on track with your birth story and where we're at. It's your daughter's birthday, and then what's happening?
Yeah. So I wake up at 7:25 and I had a little nausea once again, contractions. And then I text my husband, I think I'm having him today, but I'll be fine till you get off and get home. I've been tossing and turning since 3 a.m. I hope this is it. And then I text him again a few minutes later. They're so strong because I tell you, the minute I woke up, it was go time. Like 2 hours later, he's out, right? So I'm in transition when I wake up. Okay.
Yep.
So 2 minutes later, I get
I'm
out
right
of bed.
there with you. This it's so funny because our birth stories on this front with your sixth, right? And my fourth parallel so much. It's crazy. But anyway, keep going.
So I'm bracing myself at this point. I get up out of bed, I'm bracing myself. I text him again, I'm not getting any breaks. Ow. And then I go to the bathroom and immediately another contraction. So they're just back to back to back. I'm not having breaks at this point. I'm not having time to set up music or lights or candles or any, it's just back to back. Um, so then 7:35, so 10 minutes later, I go into my mom's room. I tell her, this is it. This is real. This is happening. She believes me and she gives me a hug and she's like, it's going to be okay. We're fine. Right. And I text him again. I told him, this is definitely it. Help me, Jesus. And then I go into the kitchen. I have some water and the nausea is kind of ramping up right now. So then actually have a moment to get my daughter's birthday candles. We always sing to them in the morning, the German birthday song. So anyway, we go in and do that. And then I just recall like singing to her. And then I had a strong surge and I'm shaking. And so I told my mom, I need you to hold the candles because I'm shaking through this contraction. It's so strong. So here we are about 30 minutes later, candles are done, birthday thing is done, and we're in birthing mode now. I felt so bad it was on her birthday, but it just is what it is. So I got in the shower. And then I just knew I wanted my husband. And I kept telling my mom, I want my husband. I want him here now. So he leaves work early. He starts heading home. It's 8:10. I'm rocking in the bathroom and I'm groaning. I'm not having breaks. This is not a supernatural birth. This is not pain-free. This is super painful. Like it's the worst cramps I've had in my life. That's kind of, if you're a first time mom, contractions kind of feel like cramping, like on your menstrual period. When you're having a period, it feels like your worst cramp. That's like a contraction. That's how you know it's real, is when it really feels like that. So they're wrapping around my back and everything. And so I'm in the shower. I'm trying to get water to help me, but it's just not really doing it for me. But my husband gets home at 8:40, so we're about an hour into the birth, so he gets home at 8:40, and my mom's like, thank God you're here. um I'm moaning, I'm crying. When I see him, I just start crying because I'm like, babe, it freaking hurts so bad. Like I'm crying. I get on my knees and I'm leaning over the bed, and that feels really good. So finally I'm having some relief. I'm on my knees, I'm leaning over my bed like this, and I'm swaying my hips on my knees, if that makes sense. I'm rocking back and forth. This is definitely bearable. And I stay here for about 30 minutes. Now I have a comb in my hand. And so I'm squeezing the comb, trying to redirect my pain sensors over to my hand from my contractions. As I have my comb, everything feels super rushed. I, again, didn't have time to set anything up. So that was kind of like, it was kind of shocking to me, I guess. 9 o'clock, I'm now starting to get breaks. So I'm probably getting really close to having him because I'm having these nice breaks. So when I do have a break, I'm literally just trying to close my eyes and like fall asleep or just forget everything. And my daughter put this patch on my back. I got like some icy hot patches just to help in case I had back labor, which I really didn't, but she just put one on there. And then 9:15, so this is almost 2 hours in, I reached down to see if I can feel a head. And listen to this, guys. I'm pretty sure I broke my bag of waters with my nails. So nails are a no-no. If you plan on doing a home birth unassisted, you want to reach up there. No nails, okay? I'm pretty sure I broke my bag of waters with nails. My prayer, I wanted to have a baby and call because I've never had that, a baby in a sack. And so I wanted that. And I had prayed for that. But when I reached up there, I feel like I did break my bag of waters with my nails, because just a minute later, I had a huge gush of meconium water. Now I think back and I'm like, Lord, if I had not altered my nails, I know this is really dramatic, but if I had not altered my nails and I had not reached up there, or maybe reached up there with no nails, and I didn't break that bag of waters, maybe would he have come a little bit smoother into this world because he might have been in his bag and he might have just slid out a little bit smoother. I don't know, but looking back, I'm like, okay, Lord, next time I'm going to trust you fully and I'm not going to like mess with the process, right? Because my water broke. It was meconium, but I wasn't too worried. 9:30, long breaks are happening. I'm still on my hands and knees. I'm about to have him. And then at 9:35, baby's head comes. And so again, this is 2 hours later. It's such a familiar feeling when his head comes. The head is in the canal, and seconds from bursting out, I yell, here he comes. I pronounce and I give a good push, and his entire head comes out, which was such a relief to have that head out, right? Ladies, you know, I'm so excited. I'm thinking it's almost over. And I thought this, right? And I said, call my mom and the kids. And so my husband calls my mom and the kids to come in the room because we're all thinking the baby's going to come, right? And from 9:35 to 9:45, his head was out and his body would not come. And that has never happened to me. It was so scary. It was so surreal. And in that time, my mom is coming in and out of the room. The kids are coming in and out of the room. They're making ruckus. Like my husband's just there trying to like help his body out, but his entire head is out. So again, we have the birth video. We plan to share it. I'm just trying to blur everything out, but the entire, and what, I'm not saying like he wasn't bobbing, he wasn't like going back. He had, so his neck was up to my birth canal and his entire head was out. Crazy. So I tried 7 different positions to get him out. I was already leaning over the bed, so that's 1. 2, I got on the ground on hands and knees. So that was the second thing. Third, I put one leg up, and that's actually what's recommended to do if your baby's head is stuck, hands and knees with your leg up. I tried that, couldn't push him out. Fourth, I got on my back and I pulled my legs up to my chest, how they do in the hospital. And I thought, well, maybe they're right. Maybe I gotta do this, pull my legs up. Nope, he wouldn't come like that. And then I stood up and I put my hands on the bed while standing, and I kind of like not lean, but yeah, my hands on my bed. And then I'm leaning, and his head's still out this entire time I'm standing. That didn't help. And then I get down on all fours again, this time with like my face to the ground more, my bottom up more, just trying to do different things. And then finally, my mom, and this is totally a God intervention, and the reason that she was there is she goes, you need to get up and squat, up and squat, up and squat. And that made so much sense to me. And during those 10 minutes, I'm like, why didn't I think to squat? Because squatting, I mean, on a birth stool, on a toilet, just in the air, just squatting is such a good way to get a baby out. But I didn't try it till the end. So finally, I get up into a squatting position. I'm holding my daughter's hands in front of me and I'm squatting. I was also actually scared to squat because my pelvic floor, and I've had a fissure, I've had anal issues. And so I was kind of scared to squat, actually. That's probably why I didn't do it. But anyway, I squat and I just gave it my all. This is it. I'm like, I'm getting him out. I gave it everything I had. I grit my teeth and I just squeezed as hard as I could. And I held my breath and I pushed as hard as I could. And finally, the body slipped out onto the floor. My husband guided him to the floor, and I was almost close to the floor because I was squatting. So it wasn't like a fall, but it was just like my husband kind of like grabbed him and guided him down. And so he was on the floor. And after I pushed him out, I mean, looking at the video, he was very gray. He was very floppy. He had no muscle tone. He wasn't breathing. He was just very floppy and scary. He was gray. And all I knew is that if he wasn't going to make, if he was almost close to not making it, I needed him on my chest. I knew I needed him to hear my heart. I needed his heart to match my heart, his breathing to match my breathing, his temperature to match my temperature. That's all I wanted. I'm like, get him on me. I need him on me. That's all I knew in that moment of panic. I just wanted him on me. So my husband goes, okay, let's go. Like stand up. Like he's trying to make it a way to put him on me. So they get me a chair, and my husband tells my mom, get a chair. And so she brings a chair. So I sit down in the chair, and then my husband puts him on me. And so at that point, I'm feeling better about it because he's there. And also he's starting to pink up, but he's still not making any sound. So for about the next 10 minutes, we're trying to get him to make a sound because he's pinking up, but he's not making a sound. He's not moving. He still has no muscle tone. So I know this is really bad. And in my head, I'm almost at the point, at one point, I told my husband to call it. I told him, call the ambulance, call it, because he's not okay. And my husband was so confident. He was like, no, it's going to be okay. I'm not calling. Like, you're going to be fine. He's going to be fine. Everything's okay. I don't know where that came from as a supernatural reassurance because he did not look fine. I was sucking myself. I was sucking from his mouth. My husband was sucking. We were trying to get secretions out. I think my son could have used a breath. So instead of me just sucking, I think he could have used a breath in that moment. So I could have just done that myself. You know, he doesn't need an ambu bag, but I could have given him a breath. That might have helped him too. I processed with some midwives after that, and they kind of mentioned that maybe he needed a breath. But thankfully, everything was fine. He is 100% healthy. I'm 100% healthy. I didn't tear. He didn't break a shoulder. He didn't have any issues after birth whatsoever. He's my healthiest, happiest, smartest boy. No brain issues, nothing from the oxygen. I mean, he was attached to my placenta the entire time. So just looking back, I'm like, okay, if I was well, we can go over the hospital thing later, but that's the birth.
That's amazing. So, and when Sue and I were talking about this, and you can go back and listen to my birth stories, but like I told her, I said, I'm sorry. Like, I want to apologize to you because if I had shared more of my story with my fourth birth, then, and you had heard that, maybe you wouldn't have had to sit in that panic in that moment, right? Because parallel, almost the same exact thing. So, except 12 pounds. Mine was 10. Mine was 10 too, not 12. And overdue, right? Add to that I'm a geriatric mom. If we want to say that, like that's how I would have been treated in the hospital. But like, it came out gray. We had meconium, nuchal cord, true knot, like all the things, head out forever, right? Forever. And you're going, this isn't going well, having to unlock the dystocia, all of that, our births mirror each other so much. And out pops this gray baby. And you're like, what do I do in this moment right now? And it's like something kicks in and you're like, give him to me. I need him on me, get him on me. Like, and here's what I'll say. I was thankful that I had midwives who educated me and that I'd had education, right? So I knew to look, and his umbilical cord was pulsing right next to the navel, which matters, right? So I knew to look for that. His nails were starting to pink up. And as we rubbed, he was going, he was trying to take a breath. He wasn't getting it, right? But he was trying. And so as we were rubbing, he was doing that. And he, And so when the midwives, because they didn't make it, remember, my midwife didn't believe I was in labor, so she missed this one too. My husband's line is always like, do we have to pay? Like, what? Why do we have to pay for that? But anyway, so when the first midwife arrives, then she, calls the second midwife and she's evaluating and telling everything. And so they said, yeah, we're going to go ahead and, put the bag on him and give him a little bit of oxygen just to make sure that he's fine. But they evaluated and said he's already okay. Um, and had I been in a hospital, this is where we'll go down the hospital track, right? Like, had I been in a hospital, the way that would have been treated with all of those elements would have been so different. And the only thing pretty much that I had different than yours was I'm older, right? And my baby was 2 pounds smaller. That's it. So like they would have been taken. We wouldn't have had a chance to put them on our chest. The cord would have been cut. Like all these things would have happened. And that cord matters in those moments. The chest matters. Getting with like the baby being able to sync with your heartbeat, with your breaths, like all of that matters when you have what you would say worst case scenarios, right? This instance. And when that is taken from the mom, when that opportunity is taken from the mom and the baby, that outcomes can be adverse. And so, yes, it's scary. And yes, it's hard to, navigate all of this out, especially when we're in such a medicalized environment. You know, I can tell you from my experiences, Sue can tell you from her experience, like this is what we experienced. Now, if there are other medical issues, then yes, obviously you're going to need a facility, right? You're going to need someone to take care of things. If there has been, if the cord has been compressed or anything like that, right? You're going to have to look at certain things in that. But again, I don't know your situation. I'm telling you my experience. Sue's telling you her experience. And in that experience with both of these, just getting the baby to us and giving him time to acclimate made a difference. And there's nothing wrong. They're perfectly fine. I'm like, he's early walker, early talker, still won't shut up, like all the things, we're 3 years out. So, I think it matters that we put some of this kind of stuff into perspective. But I apologize to Sue and I told her, like, I should have shared more of that experience because maybe you wouldn't have had to walk through the panic that you did a little bit. So I'll let you go ahead and elaborate more on, your version of that. And, because you've worked in labor and delivery, you've seen this happen. So, going from it from that angle, you're looking at this baby that's gray and from a medical background and a mom background, and you're trying to weigh all this out. So where's your head at? I know you told your husband to call 911, but like now looking back and processing all that, like go through your thoughts in that moment and how you've processed all that out.
Yeah, definitely. So it took me a long time to process this birth. It took me about a week to write my birth story. It took me a few days to watch my birth video because I was so traumatized by the fact that he could have lost his life. And the thing is that, and I mentioned this when we talked earlier, was like the enemy and God, it's going to be two different voices, right? And the enemy comes with fear and with shame, right? And so the enemy was coming in like, how dare you plan this free birth? You could have put your son in danger, your son's life in danger. So for the first few days, I was entertaining those thoughts from the enemy because I almost felt like a bad mom. Like, oh my God, I almost like the enemy was just open fair grounds. I was like, this is your fault and all this, right? But then God came in and I let God in the situation and I started to process with God and I started to seek the Lord on these things. And God, why did this happen this way? And I thought free birth was from you. And I thought you gave me the faith to do this. And God's like, I did give you the faith. I did give you a perfect birth. I did give you a healthy son and a healthy perineum. I did give you all of that. And that's when it clicked. Like the enemy has been trying to tell me this was wrong. God is saying this is right because, and then I started to think further. Girl, think back to when you worked in labor and delivery. What would they have done if a baby's head was out? When the baby's head comes, immediately the doctor wants the body. Immediately. Not even a minute. They won't let a minute go by. Okay. So after 60 seconds, that doctor is snipping you down to your butt to get those shoulders out. Okay. If that doesn't happen or that doesn't help, If suction doesn't help, if pulling doesn't help, they're taking you to an emergency C-section to deliver the body. So I think when we understand that the way the medical community does things is not normal and it's not necessarily what God wants and it's not physiological birth, when we understand that everything we know, everything we've learned and seen on Hollywood and social media and like birth videos in the hospital or maybe working in a hospital, everything we've seen, it's their way of doing things, not God's way. And sometimes maybe a baby isn't going to come right after their head comes. Sometimes maybe a placenta is going to take 8 hours. Sometimes that's the way birth goes, and it's okay because there was no repercussions. There was nothing bad happened from it. And so from that experience, I learned that God said, I was with you the whole time. Like this didn't go the way you wanted, but I was with you and I was there, and like everything turned out fine. And so I just know that God grew my faith through this, that He wants this story to get out to other women, that He wants other women to grow their faith with me through my story, and that He wants me to continue to grow my faith and to have a wild pregnancy and a wild birth and to experience maybe, who knows, another supernatural pain free birth, right? Or maybe another fast birth. But either way, that He's with me, that He's guiding me, and that this was the best decision for our family, even though at first it felt very traumatizing. It felt really scary. I know it's a best decision in the end because in the hospital, I would have come out there cut up in different areas, and that just wouldn't be nice, and who knows, sometimes they really hurt babies in these situations. So shoulder dystocia, there's a lot of like lawsuits and things going on from the hospital because of the way they handle shoulder dystocia. It's not okay. The way that they tug on babies, and they have actually decapitated babies doing that, and it's scary. So I'm really glad that with my 12-pounder, I was at home and I was allowed the freedom to try 7 different positions and to breathe and to listen to my husband. And I'm really glad looking back. Lots of gratitude.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your stories with us. I think it matters. And, I think it matters too. Like, take into consideration as you hear every birth story that we'll be sharing on this podcast, like their experiences, their backgrounds, Sue has worked in labor and delivery. She's a nurse, so she has a medical background, right? And she is someone who seeks scripture, seeks the Father, seeks truth, and wants to put him at the center of everything that she's doing, including her birth. And so I think it matters that you look at all these people's backgrounds who are, making these choices as you're considering making your choices. And you're going to hear us, even Sue, who is a nurse, and, me, who's a doula, say in these moments, a lot of times we can't even think for ourselves, so we forget how to move. We forget the things that we should have done. And so it is good to have support people there. Whether or not you want a doula, whether or not you want someone on speed dial, to be able to access in those moments, and to have a voice there to advocate for you and to remind you, hey, by the way, try this position. Just like her mom saying, squat, like God will place those people there in those moments for those reasons. And I'm a doula, and I'm saying that I believe the only person you really need in the room is you and your husband. And then, someone somewhere else that's accessible to you to be able to say, okay, yeah, you're dealing with this. Maybe you or the husband says, I'm dealing with this, the baby's head isn't coming out for a period of time or whatever. And they say, hey, what about squatting? Why don't you try this? Maybe you've got a dystocia, let's lift that leg and unpop this, and in my case, like, nope, your knees are still out. Let's push your knees in a little bit and, open that outlet. So like, there are things that matter in those moments that someone else can just be a quick voice in, and there you go. So, but thank you for sharing your story. I think it matters so much. And we share these because we want you to borrow courage from them. We want you to glean information and ideas. Don't take things as gospel. I'm not a doctor. I'm telling you my experiences and my ideas and things that I've heard from other people and witnessed. Okay. So I want you to take the information that we share, if it's scripture, if it's a birth movement, if it is, a suggestion or an idea, go research it, figure it out for yourself, talk to your spouse about it, talk to whoever's going to be there advocating with you. And you know what you know because you know it, not because someone else told it to you. And then it becomes a conviction in you. And when something becomes a conviction in you, then you can implant that into the subconscious, and it can be so much different than just you regurgitating information that someone told you. So anyway, Sue, is there anything else that you want to add on this?
Yeah, I just think what really stuck out was surrender. And I just really think it's important you guys sit with the Lord and just put your worship on and just get in a moment of space, of peace whenever you find out you're pregnant, and just sit there with the Lord and ask the Lord, is this faith or is this fear? Is this faith or is this fear? Every intervention, every test, every birthing suggestion from your doctor or your mom or whoever, is this faith or is this fear? And you want to go with faith. You want to go with peace. You want to go with faith. You want to go where God leads you. And so just let the Lord lead you, surrender to the Lord. And like Lori said, everything will work out if you just trust the Lord. He will put those little people in your life, those little moments, those thoughts, those movements, those positions, those whatever you need to get through your birth. He will give you those when you surrender.
Absolutely. And so I will say, in our Restoring Birth courses and book, I have a whole chapter on this in the book as far as surrender, because it matters so much. And fun fact, did you know that the word surrender isn't actually in scripture? Did you know that? Isn't that fun? Go check that out. But anyway, the idea of it is, and that's what we talk about, is we look at it from a Hebrew perspective. But surrender is huge. And I have a whole chapter on fear, because if you're not addressing your fears in life in general, guess what's going to pop up in the middle of birth, right? Some kind of trauma from the past is going to come up, and you're going to be like, oh, shoot, where'd that come from? And that's going to impact your birthing experience. Okay. But anyway.
Yeah, just to touch on that really quick. Sorry,
Yeah.
but the 8-hour placenta, just know that that was fear, because the birth before that, remember that doctor who cut my cord? She had waited 45 minutes for my placenta, but she cut my cord, and that caused a lot of trauma and fear. So like you're saying, there's going to be traumas and fears that come up in your next birth. So that's why it's so important to surrender all that to God, and all that unforgiveness and all of that. Every birth, process your birth. If you need to reach out to me or Lori, process your birth, talk about it, speak it out. Whatever happened in the hospital, whatever hurts you, you need to write that down, speak it out, talk to the Lord, talk to someone and process it. Because again, it will come up in the next birth and the next birth after that. This placenta came right away. Okay, because I processed it, I took care of it, and I knew after that, like, okay, we got to nurse, we got to breastfeed, we got to go pee, we got to stand up, and it came out right away. So I had let go of that fear, but yeah, holding on to those fears can cause that trauma for sure.
Yes, absolutely. It's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. And thank you for your passion, because I know that you have tons of passion around this to be able to share with women. And again, if you guys have any questions, I'm going to say this after every episode. If you have any questions, please, please, please post them down below. We will get to them. I will post links, and I will post a link to, if you're just listening, I'll post a link to the YouTube video, because I want you to see the births that we have videos for. And so I'll post a link to the YouTube video as well. And if you have questions asked, we will get back to you. I promise you that. And again, if we don't know the answer, we'll find somebody who does. So I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening to the Faith-Based Birthing Podcast. And I will see you next time. Bye.